Hear ye, all my fellow heathens. We welcome you back to the Church of Heathens. We got an important topic to discuss tonight. We're going to be reacting to the recent BLEXIT talks titled Black Fathers Matter. Shout out to all my dads out there. We had King Randall, Craig Long, and Pastor Frederick Tappet as guests, sharing their amazing wisdom and knowledge. This for healing in our community, baby. As usual, we're breaking curses tonight. You ready? By the grace of God, may your life be forever changed by this conversation. Let's get into it. The countdown begins.
Call me Driscoll, aka Jesus Peace. Spitting scriptures that's in red, making Jesus speak. If you get that through your head, what your demons seek, it's the blood that these vampires need to drink, that bring the dead back to life, make it seem discreet. Man, these lives getting touched, I redeem the streets. Hit you deeper than that crack that these fiends can beat. It's the dawn of the dead, quarantine the streets. For the goons with AKs, ARs, strapped up like they made for war. I speak for those with no voices, while my words cut like a ninja sword. So much spirit up on each verse that you ain't gotta go to church just to hear the Lord. Make your soul rain at the inner core. It's the blood game that we living for. Make you hold your pain or you sin no more. What we out here trying to be bitter for? To reflect the pain from the inner war. That's the bigger war. Please give us Lord. Let's party, get turned, and don't let haters stop your thunder. Tell your DJ that Driscoll got the club locked this summer. What's up?
Yo, all my heathens, all my family, my brethren, welcome back again. We are here in the sanctuary for another episode of Church of Heathens. This time we are going to react to the latest BLEXIT talks conversation titled Black Fathers Matter, featuring King Randall, Frederick Tappet, and Craig Long. Amazing wisdom was shared, y'all. I just can't wait to share this with y'all, man, and dig into this and give y'all some of my thoughts and ideas from the show that I either didn't get to share on the show because of time constraints or just out of respect for BLEXIT's platform. So here in the sanctuary, we're known to be a bit more controversial. So it's only right that I brought up the pastor of Church of Heathens to dig into this with me. Without further ado, let me get my boy Smitty in the sanctuary to holler at you. And if you don't know who he is, Smitty, tell the people about yourself, man.
What is going on? It's your local neighborhood libertarian, Smitty. Just got my YouTube channel set up. I'm gonna drop a video, and then after I drop the video will be in the comments here. Thank you once again, brother, for having me here.
Absolutely. We excited about that channel, man. Let's get that link. Let's get that popping. Let's collaborate. Let's get your message out there, because I know you got a lot to say to the people. Too much that's been in your brain bottled up, bro. Taylor, what's up with you, man? Appreciate you for tuning in. Family values, as always. You already know you got my heart. Mother of the Church of Heathens. Let's get into this, man. BLEXIT talks. If you don't know what BLEXIT Foundation is, I would encourage you to look it up. It is a nonprofit organization that is nonpartisan, with the mission of changing the narrative within the Black community, helping us break out of the victim mindsets and understand the opportunities that are available to us in 21st century America. Founded by Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum. And they've started a show called BLEXIT Talks, in which I am a host. And it is a monthly live stream where you, the viewer, can ask questions in the comments section to be answered on the show by guests. We bring on influencers, grassroots leaders from within the organization, and different people that we feel would be appropriate for the conversation at hand. So we're going to show you a few clips from the latest episode called Black Fathers Matter. Let me know your thoughts in the comments of these clips. You know, here we raw in the Church of Heathens, so I can't wait to really dig into my thoughts. And my brother Smitty. Smitty, what was your thoughts off back just hearing about this episode?
The topic is very relevant. And I feel like it's a really good follow-up to the morality of child support.
Absolutely. Fair enough, because they do go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let's get into this and give it to the people. This is our first clip. And give me a thumbs up if the audio is okay. First topic is father absence. Whoever would like to jump in on this question, how does father absence negatively affect children?
Well, father absence negatively affects children because the family needs to have a father there as the leader. It's whether you have girls or boys, they need to understand that the father is the leader of the family. When that leader is absent, then that forms a negative juxtaposition within the family, where that, especially with the boys, they don't have an example of what being a man is all about. Right. I shared this. I'm gonna share it very quickly. There was a story I read. There was a group of elephants that were juvenile elephants that were marauding around Africa, and they were attacking people. They were attacking other animals. And so when they did the research to figure out what was going on, they found out that poachers had killed the older male elephants. So they didn't understand what being a male elephant was all about. So what they did, they ganged up and started to kill. Wow. And we see some of that behavior in our communities today. So we've got to re-engage our fathers so that our young people will stop ganging up and become just positive people in society because they have a positive role model.
Wow. They get into so much in this clip alone. But I just want to break it down for a quick second because he just said something that was just really amazing to me, and comparing the comparison between what was seen in nature and in our community as human beings. That was Pastor Frederick Tappan of a church in Memphis, Tennessee, where we know crime is absolutely off of the chain, doing amazing work in that community. What were your thoughts on what he said there?
I couldn't find a lie.
But we're in a society now that wants to say we can be not a man, and we're champion single mother. We're calling it strength. And even here in nature, in male elephants, we're seeing that they are joining gangs when the fathers are removed from their family. Like, that blew my mind completely.
In that topic, it goes back. If you guys didn't watch the morality of the child support system, part 2, go check that out. He speaks about getting fathers excited to be fathers again. I think that is a necessity.
Go there.
As I listened to it the first time, I was like, what do we really need to get us excited? Like, yeah, we do. We need to be excited about being fathers again. The red pill community is almost on the verge now because it has broken down into so many compartments to where it is pushing against the nuclear family. And people aren't finding the strength in that anymore.
Go there, brother. You on it. I can't. You did not tell a lie yet. That's one of my number one complaints about the movement, and it irritates me because it's counterproductive for what it is that we're saying. We recognize the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, when he says that we need to get excited about being father, like, have you ever, in your experience, just be transparent, ever felt not excited to be a dad? Because you have quite a few kids.
Yeah, I got five to be exact. Yeah.
Have you had your moments where you can relate to that feeling?
I'm happy to see my kids every day. Now I have a grown one and one that'll be grown this coming up December. So, my challenges are a little bit different now because they're at that point now to where they feel like they could do everything without me.
Mm.
And when I ask them simple questions that they don't know, the older your kids get, the more pride swells up in them, unless you grab them as branches. So, use me as an example to not let your kids swell up with pride. Because my kids give me some pushback now. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is this. And they're like, well, actually.
Okay.
So then I have to break things down. But it doesn't take my excitement away from being a father. Because it's still teachable moments. You know what I mean?
How do you think they got to that place though? Because you're saying be careful not to allow that. What do we need to look for? What do we need to do differently?
Be careful who your kids hang around with. I know being a part of like a Christian community is like love, 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 but you got to learn to love people from a distance sometimes. Sometimes it's like offering the other kid good advice and giving them time to work that thing out. My son generally hangs out with it's one kid in particular that he actually happens to be grown. He's actually he's 19 now. And now my son who's 17 feels like he could do 19-year-old things.
Yeah, come on. I feel you, bro.
But the 19-year-old does things at a 16-year-old capacity. And I try to explain that to my son. It's like, yo, don't fall into that trap. It's like, I even told my son this, and we talked about this before on End Time Soldiers or whatever. When we talk about raising our kids, you don't push your kids out of the house when they turn 18. Right. It's not the time to do it. You let a man see you be a man who's transforming into a man, show you like where your time will be spent most of the time. Most of the time, your time will not be spent at the crib. You will be out providing. I'm like, dude, I've asked him because he wants things that I have. And I'll ask him, I'm like, do you know how I got the things that I've gotten? Because I'm willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. I'm willing to work hours that other people aren't willing to work.
That's a fact. That's the only way.
Yeah.
For majority of people, who have not found or come up on an inheritance.
And even if you come up on an inheritance, you still have to do it to maintain. You have to do what other people won't do.
Exactly. You touched on something big, man. It's those outside influences.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest thing. And we never got to get into this discussion. And we kind of already are off track, but we got all night. The homeschool thing, bro. I was on a Vice panel recently, and I don't want to spoil too much conversation, but one of the biggest pushbacks I get is, well, your kids won't be socialized when they're homeschooled. And I'm like, good. I don't need them around your Negro kids.
Well, but see, that's still not true though, because
not true.
Yeah, you still have a neighborhood that you live in. So does your neighborhood disappear because you decide to homeschool your kids?
Fair question. It's not true. And either way, I have 8 of them. They are very socialized. In fact, they are more socialized than most people's kids because they're socializing 24/7. And I actually seen a study, which I'm not prepared to display today, that said homeschool kids are actually typically better socialized versus a public school kid, because ones in public school are typically getting their socialization only with children their age, versus the homeschool kid is socializing with an adult that challenges them to conversate on another level. and it prepares them to have a wider range of conversation than someone who's only talking on the level of their age group.
So while we're touching on that, because I know you've done it for quite a while, what are some of the benefits that you've seen from homeschooling beyond that one false boundary, which is communication?
Right. Man, I'm gonna say the number one benefit is peace of mind. I know everything being taught to my kids. There will be no surprises. There will never be that pushback of, well, I learned this over here and you just out of touch, daddy. You don't know how the world works anymore.
Mm.
Everything you learn, huh?
That's good. That's good, bro.
That's a shot to the heart, bro. It's like, damn, like I done spent all these damn years and I'm no longer the strongest influence in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's inevitable. I mean, even me as a teenager, when I got to a certain age, it was nothing my mom told me that I received. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about, lady.
Yeah.
Especially if I don't see in your life anything that I strive to be, you can completely miss me with your advice. And I felt like that by the time I was 13, 14.
Our perceived knowledge, though, and I think our parents experienced this with us, like their perceived knowledge as we advanced as a society or fell back as a society, kind of in our times now. Things look different as you age. So it's kind of like when I talk to my kids now, and because of outside influences,
Right.
I tend the conversations tend to be I get contended a lot because I have to prove my points. Like, yo, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not with the whip thing anymore. Like nobody listens to Stevie Wonder anymore, Dad. Like, why are you still doing that? You know what I mean? and it's like, well, the thing is the truth, no matter what time frame you're in.
Yep.
The truth was the truth in 1970. The truth was the truth in 1960. The truth was the truth in 1950. And the truth is still the truth in 2023.
But who would have thought you, bro, as a young dad, you're not even 40 yet, would get that kind of pushback? You don't even get to be the hip dad. It's like there is no excuse, there's no exclusions in that. It's like these kids get to a point where they just like, you don't know what you talk about. And my environment, my influences, they're the ones that got it right. That's frightening to me.
I guess it's not so much scary to me because I was one of my mother's detractors.
Yeah.
I eventually got old enough to realize, like, oh, you weren't lying about anything.
Bro.
You were being dead honest with me. And I was just a kid who didn't understand life.
Bro, I say all the time, at 19, I thought I had it all together. Nobody could tell me nothing. I was the one with the knowledge. And it's amazing for me to think about how ignorant I was at that age. Didn't know a goddamn thing. And it's crazy. You could not have convinced me back then. And even like you said on the point of understanding your mother's wisdom better. Bro, I gave my mom hell about her trying to get me to go in the military. And now I credit that to being one of the things that saved me. Because I had no idea what direction I was going. If I did not, and I've talked about that on this BLEXIT Talks, if I did not go into the military, I don't know when I would have ever started to make any steps towards being successful, because I never seen a man get up every day and do it, to know what it looks like, to know what it's supposed to appear like in that process. And that was what gave me that exposure to different environments. And like I said, we got a clip about that to get into a little later. But to finish your question though, that's just one of the points about homeschooling that I think is key. Is that we get to, like Family Value said, shout out to her because she's the homeschool teacher. I don't like to take the credit. Control their environment. My kids go around other kids now. It's in doses, but It ain't the same as in a public school. And
Joyce Meyer said this like
go ahead. Yep.
a really, really long time ago. She said, if you post a sign in your house that says don't eat donuts, and you hold that sign over their head for forever or for their whole childhood, what do you think the first thing that they're going to do as adults?
Talk about it. They would have never even thought about a donut, probably.
Yeah, but you made it like this big thing, and I want my kids to think for themselves. So it's like, even though they contend me like a little bit at the later stages of their lives, I'd rather they contend me than for them to just believe the world.
Right. And I don't think the contention is all the way a bad thing, because like you said, it gives you the opportunity for those teaching moments.
Mm-hmm.
And had that not happened, had they just out of fear said, I'm gonna just go the way you say, you may never have known that those mentalities existed in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it gives you a chance to be a father.
And then you man, you know what? I'll save this. I'll bottle up a little bit of my feelings because I know we have other clips to go through. And instead of sharing all,
we got time.
We got some time tonight, so we can bounce into the next clip unless you want to expound on something else.
No, go ahead. Or are you saying you want to save what you were going to say?
I want to save it. Well, I'll save it.
But yeah, just to finish your question, that is the main one: controlling their environment, being their number one influence. But the second thing is the bond that they're building with their mother. That is healing for me to see, because I didn't know that was a possibility. As a kid growing up, I wanted to be away from mom. I wanted to get away from the house. So I grew up thinking inevitably children don't want to be around their parents. And maybe that's a later thing. I don't know. But it's a blessing to me to see like they are excited to learn with mom. I don't know why that's important for me, but it's touching me to know to recognize that. So they're building an infallible bond in the process of learning. Is your finger up? You trying to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question about what you just said. And I think you can give a bright answer to this too. When it comes down to the homeschooling thing, now, this is a question that's been brought up to me because I talked about homeschooling my kids, and they're like, the controlled environment thing was brought up to me. Like, yes, you can control the environment, but once you set them free, are you worried about their integrity?
Right. I'm not, but to be fair, my kids are a long way from that. I probably just don't really think about it yet.
Okay.
You know what I mean? To be all really honest. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Fair. That's fair.
I probably don't think about it yet because I don't have to.
That's
but this is another thing I have to consider. Because I hear those kind of detractions so much to make people second guess the decision. But what I don't see is the example that says if they don't homeschool, they turn out better.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So the question doesn't usually scare me for that reason, because it ain't like the public schools kids are making better decisions because of their exposure. Their exposure continues into adulthood.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I reconcile that right now.
Yeah. Like, my wife tried to homeschool our kids. It was for a short amount of time or whatever, but in that short amount of time, they wanted to break free. Right.
And to be fair, she started them older though. You know, I caught mine really young. These kids are being homeschooled from the foundation. I can understand that, because if my mom would have tried to homeschool me at 15, I would have raised hell. Get me the hell up out of here every day, because that's my break.
Yeah, like you know about the big 5 personality traits and things of that nature,
right?
I think personality traits play a big role into it. Like, I'm introverted, so like public school wasn't the best thing for me. Private school was way better for me because it limited the class size, and then with the class size being smaller, I was able to talk to the teacher more privately, and I didn't have to worry about what other kids have to worry about in public schools, whether it be trying too hard, because that's the thing that exists in public schools.
Yeah.
Like you're doing too much, bro. Like, why are you raising your hand every time the teacher asks a question?
Talk about it.
Yeah.
It ain't cool to be smart in any inner city public school, bro. Like, you'll get. Go ahead.
We live in a world now where it's kind of like Revenge of the Nerds, bro, because big tech has taken over everything.
That's true. But in our day, if you was the dude that was asking the questions or answering all the questions first and getting all the A's, you're gonna get joked and picked on for that.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy, bro, to see that. And I seen it tremendously because I got to live in different cities throughout my lifetime. And I seen the differences even in the different locations. If I was in an area where it was an all black school, it was worse. The coolest kids in class, bro, I lie to you not. I was in 6th grade and the coolest dudes in the school was 14 years old.
That's crazy.
They was turning 15 that school year. I'm like, bro, and what you gonna do? What you gonna do if the 14-year-old kid decide he want to pick on you?
Yeah. You know what I did in defense of that, and then to try to create some integrity with my kids, with them going to public schools. With them going to public schools, this is a rule, and I found out later on that Jordan Peterson had the same rule for his kids, and it's so funny that I didn't know Jordan Peterson before I came up with this rule. But I said, you don't have to follow stupid rules. Okay. He broke down the explanation better than I ever could. If you ever get caught, then that expense is on you because you're the person who lives that school life. But if by any means you can get away from the stupid rules, then don't follow stupid rules. Be the person who thinks for themselves. And I always taught my kids to do that. I always taught my kids, like, think for yourself. So when I get contention, I'm like, well, at least they're thinking.
Okay.
And they don't usually have like finished talking points to me to where it's like they're proving me wrong. So at least the contention is questions instead of them telling me all the time. I mean, they've told me I was wrong before because like certain music that they like to listen to, I'll be like, this dude is trash, and they be like, you tripping, daddy. But other than that,
I go win that argument, because they don't even understand the music we grew up on anymore. If you can clearly hear a nigga words, that's trash to them.
Yeah.
Then now it gotta be why. Yeah, if it's not that, they're not gonna get it anymore.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's a fact. Next thing, like, I know growing up, there was a lot of pressure on us sexually, pressure to be tough or engage in, you know what I mean, that type of behavior, etc. Yo, touch your butt, bro. Bet you won't touch your butt. You know what I mean? Oh, you ain't fucking you avert, like all that type of pressure that gets put on you is another thing that I know I don't have to worry about that, because I found myself doing a lot of things in my younger years just because my friends would ridicule me if I didn't, not because it was genuinely in my heart. And I hate that. I hate that looking back on it. And that's something I don't want for my kids. So that goes back into influences. But I guess the last thing would be we get to control the curriculum. We get to decide what they're learning. You don't get to push the agendas. And we can address the agendas and give them the true narrative. So a lot of people say, well, you're going to hide from them that there are gay people out here and they're not going to know how to live amongst gays. No, we're going to very well tell them that there are gay people out here. And we're also going to tell them our beliefs that marriage is between a man and a woman. So love those gay people, but don't live like them.
Yeah. And I don't want to dox you or anything of that nature, but me and you had a conversation about where you live and the freedom that you have with your schooling. I think that is amazing. I
The
think
freedom
that is
that I have with
incredible
what?
with schooling.
Oh, you talking, bro? I mean, I say it for the sake of clarity. In the state of Arizona, we have the best school choice program in the country, and it is a major blessing. Every kid qualifies. You know, most states that have school choices, certain kids qualify, um, special needs or things like that. No, every kid qualifies. If you remember being in school, you had to fill out the federal card, and that was always pressed on you because that's how they get the money per student. Well, in Arizona, if you decide to homeschool, take your kid out of school, the voucher would allow you to get the money that would go to that school to pay for either a tuition for private school, a homeschool curriculum, school supplies, and things of that nature. It is absolutely a godsend. And whatever state you in, if you have children, especially, I would be pushing for legislation to bring Arizona level school choice to your state. It is imperative because it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And there
I
are
would
home
imagine.
programs out here that allow you to get the curriculum online, turn in your assignments. The teachers give feedback. So it ain't just you doing everything. You also have actually trained educators out there that will also assist you in your homeschooling process. And that is the program we're using is called Exodus Institute. You can find it at thinkexodus.org. And if you have a voucher, it will completely cover your tuition. And I personally know the person who runs it. She has been educated over 15 years in the state of California and created this program to combat the agendas that she was seeing going on in the school system, turning our kids into little Marxists. So yeah, Jazz dropped the link out here. They have an enrichment program that can be used just additional to your regular homeschool regimen. And it's only $20 a month if you choose that route. We tried our daughter on it. And I mean, within the first month, she was begging us to do her assignments. No cap. No cap. She was begging us to do her assignments. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I never had to tell her did you do this yet? She was coming to knock on her door. Hey, can I do this assignment? And I'm like, man, that was just gold. See, okay, this person knows the teacher named Kali Fontanilla. That is who is the founder of it. So yeah, look into that if you're a homeschool kid or a homeschool parent out there, just looking for some direction. Very important. Very important.
Let's dive into this next clip.
Let's do it. Thank you for joining Sonya's scrapbook as well. We appreciate your time.
Exactly.
And so that's a thing that we have to realize. It may not be traditional, but it's effective.
Exactly.
We have to manufacture the family, but it's still a nuclear family.
I love that. I want to touch on your story, if you don't mind, a little bit. Because the question I want to ask is, do you believe that finding a father-like figure is a valid solution? And what was your relationship like with your stepfather?
Oh man, well I had two stepfathers,
Okay.
so
It's X double the trouble.
I had two stepfathers, and I'm still close, with the first one.
Okay.
He and my mom had a great, relationship, but she always said, oh, he wasn't a good husband, he was a great father.
Okay.
And he taught me, like, people always ask all the time how I know how to do so much stuff at so young. I'm like, well, I grew up painting cars. We closed in our garage. We laid bricks. We ran electricity. We grew our own food. Down to the seasonings. We had like a farm in the backyard. I learned how to, kill animals, skin them, make it like literally everything from scratch. We built our own sheds in the backyard. So he was a super country guy. We did all that stuff, hunting, you name it. So I learned how to do everything there. I could build a house from the ground, and my uncle as well, because me and my uncle kind of grew up together too. He's like 29 or whatever. I'm 23. So we kind of grew up together a little bit. So we almost like brothers, but, we literally know how to do everything. And then my current stepdad, he's a more shirt and tie guy. So he's this side of king. I can give an interview and, talk proper and stuff like that, So, that's kind of what helped me. But also speaking of that, I think it's important, for us to talk about, how to help those broken families too. Right. And I don't even call them broken. Like sometimes, like for example, in my situation, I made a decision that I was like, I just don't think we're the best fit for each other. And I believe it's going to be more detrimental to the children if we remain together. You know, and I'm just like, you know what? You know, I made that decision, but it's okay because I still make sure they're taken care of. I pick up my children. You know, we still have a, you know, try to have a great co-parenting relationship, no matter what disagreements we may have or mistakes I may have made in the past or vice versa. You know, we still make it work because it's, again, what's best for the children. You know, and it's best for them to have an equal balance of us both, you know, us both supporting them, us both doing things for them. And I think that's a great thing to add here too, because we, of course, yes, the nuclear family is good, but a lot of people are divorced, and there are, you know, dads who are still making it work outside of that, and or moms who may be too emotional about it that don't want the dad to be there just because they're emotional about what happened in the divorce. So it's literally more about you versus what's best for the kids. I'm like, the kids need their fathers equally as much as they need the mothers. So anytime somebody's getting divorced and they refuse to do joint custody, I'm like, if the father is not a mass murderer, why exactly are you not doing joint custody? Like, why exactly are you doing 50-50 visitation, etc.? There is no reason that the kids need to be with either parent more. You know, I wouldn't ask for, you know, majority custody because he need to be with his mama just half the time too. You know, whatever. So or we make it work. Do, you know, outings together, etc. You know, still make it work, you know, in the best interest of the kids. You know, so sometimes that decision has to be made too, because some people will feel like that they have to remain in a situation that is not ideal and that'll be harmful for the children. And I'm just like, sometimes that just may not be your helpmeet, but y'all had a product out of that union. So we need to figure out what we can do to best take care of that union. That is finding other father-like figures, because I would love, you know, for her to get married again. And I want to meet this man. I want to make sure that
was my next question.
Yeah, I want to make sure that that
I'm gonna stop it there real quick, and because he touched on a lot, and he's about to get into another good point. What's your thoughts, Smitty? Because I love his breakdown of his experience with his stepfather. It gave great perspective. I mean, he said his stepfather taught him everything in regards to how to be a man, but he was a horrible husband to his mother. And then he goes on in so many words. And this is King Randall, for those who do not know. He runs a boarding school for young boys. I believe it's called X for Boys. Build completely free tuition, where he takes in these young guys, man, most of them I would assume fatherless, and teaches them how to be men. So shout out to him for that, first of all. But he goes on to explain in so many words that he does not believe you should try to make the marriage work necessarily for the sake of the kids, but it would be more so detrimental to the kids to do that. What are your thoughts there?
Well, in regards to what he what he tried to embody in Whole, I mean, we've heard this so many times that, I mean, like this is going to sound like super duper cliche, but you know, people come in your life for seasons, and he just so happened to have the right people sprinkled in his life to where it continued him on to thrive, to teach other young boys who came from broken situations.
Right.
Which is very admirable. Man, it's hard for me to have an idea of somebody being a good father and being a bad husband.
Right.
It's hard.
I love the way you put that. I love the way you put that.
Yeah. It's hard for me to encapsulate that, like, in my head. And if he breaks down it all what made him a bad husband, I would love to hear that, because like I kind of think that they go hand in hand, because I think a good father helps a good mother.
Right. So you would think that, in your opinion, for the most part, typically, a good father by default would be a good husband.
Yeah.
And I kind of align with your beliefs. I had a little trouble with what he was presenting there. And I can understand the position. I think it's a popular one, but I think it's a scary one. I think it's a scary idea. And I don't really agree with it. I think the sake of the kids is a good reason to stay in a marriage. You know, So what? We don't like each other sometimes. That's what marriage is about. It's supposed to be through thick and thin, for better or for worse. Um, so why are we presenting the idea that it could be okay to break up a family because of our feelings? And I'm summarizing, I'm not directly quoting him because I don't think it was that simple what he was saying. But I
Yeah.
think if you want out of a marriage, bro, you can find a reason. You know what I mean? Nobody has a perfect spouse. If I want a reason to say I'm done with my wife, I can find a reason and I could sell it to somebody very well.
Yeah. I kind of believe that is on him and what he does, kind of like, because he talks to broken boys.
Right.
So in his direction, it wouldn't sound great to be like, hey, you came from a broken home. So you sell it as a good thing. But what it does for you as an adult is kind of like different. Like, you can know that you came from a broken home and still learn how to change a tire, and still learn math, and still learn how to spell, and still learn about Booker T and George Washington Carver and whatever it is that he's teaching at X for Boys or whatever. Broken homes are broken homes, bro, and those are difficult things to overcome. Now, should we be signaling to single mothers that they're the strongest people on the earth? No.
And to be fair, he does go into that later in the discussion, and he agrees on that matter. That is an error to present that in society. So he did address that. I don't want to mischaracterize him. Sonya Scrapbook, we agree. We love King Randall. She said Roland Martin was so rude to him when he had him on, made no sense. No, we love King Randall. My brother Smitty here is actually the one that put me on to him. So I was very excited to hear his perspectives because I love the work that he's doing. I got no shade towards him at all. But yeah, I do think that is a societal position that he took that culturally is just not conducive of the best results in our community. I think marriage has to be something that we make a commitment not only to each other, but to our unit. Because most importantly, the first commitment was to God. And I'm saying that as a divorcee. I don't think I don't think I can justify me divorcing in my first marriage. It was complete selfishness.
Man.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to acknowledge that. We can't shape the idea of right and wrong around our decisions. We have to be able to say, though I made a wrong decision, I must learn from it by accepting that it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
Or else we repeat these cycles when we start trying to justify things to coddle people's feelings.
Well, we did this in the first morality of child support. You guys asked me repeatedly over. So, do you stand for child support? And I was like, no, I would repeal it. And then Lakia said something to me, and I was like, that's up to the church. That's the church's job.
It's funny you say that. I don't got the clip off back, but if you watch the whole BLEXIT Talks episode, Pastor Frederick Tappan actually, in his own words, said the exact same thing. He said, I forgot exactly what we were talking about, but he was like, that's the church's job. That's where we step in. And I thought about you immediately, bro. I was like, man, my boy would have loved that. You would have fell out on the floor.
But I mean, like I didn't say it as like a catchphrase or whatever, but the church is supposed to take care of widows and things of that nature. So, in a church of heathens, it's we're supposed to hold the church accountable as well.
Ooh, I love that. We might have to put that in the mission statement.
We got to hold them accountable as well, because there's scripture written down for what is necessary. And are we not supposed to take care of widows?
No arguing that, bro. You're right.
I mean, even in this, I forgot to even bring this up, and I'm about to derail us just a little bit, but I want to talk about it. So, homicide is very, very prevalent in the Black community. And we never bring that up towards fatherlessness. we always kind of imagine like the dude just doesn't want to be involved. We
Well,
don't understand that the father may have been killed.
Okay. Or a lot are in prison as well.
And yeah, that's a fact. But whose job is it to take care of those people? God showed that to us.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's even biblically written. Do not just pray for people, actually help people. Don't send somebody on their way saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna pray for you, homie."
Right.
Help that person out.
That's so good. And not only did Pastor Frederick touch on that, King Randall did a little bit too. So it's amazing. I really wish you could have caught the show live, because a lot of your talking points, you share a lot of ideas with the guests we had on there. But he's about to touch on another really great point.
Exactly. Whatever. So or we make it work. Do outings together, etc. Still make it work. In the best interest of the kids. So sometimes that decision has to be made too, because some people will feel like that they have to remain in a situation that is not ideal and that'll be harmful for the children. And I'm just like, sometimes that just may not be your helpmeet, but y'all had a product out of that union. So we need to figure out what we can do to best take care of that union. That is finding other father-like figures, because I would love, for her to get married again. And I want to meet this man. I want to make sure that
was
I
my
can,
next question.
I want to make sure that he's somebody that can help me raise my son.
Still my child.
Yeah, like he's gonna be staying with you sometimes.
Exactly.
But I want to be able to go out with him. We can go out with my sons together. It's the same thing if I find a wife. I want to make sure that they meet and that they're comfortable, etc. Like that's how it's supposed to be. It can literally be that beautiful. Even my mom, she used to literally go get my dad's other kids or whatever. She'd go get them, go take them around with her. She was that mom. She was awesome. Comfortable with all of them. Comfortable with all the other children, etc. Like that's how it's supposed to be. Like literally, put your ego to the side, be mature about it, and make it happen for the kids.
You present a real mature stance, because I'm hoping it can alleviate a lot of fear, because a lot of guys don't feel like being a stepfather is a worthy investment.
I know that conversation.
You know that conversation, because not only are you putting time, effort, and finances, resources into the child, but at the end of the day, the woman can leave you. You're not going to be able to see the child possibly anymore. All that money that you invested, that time, can't feel wasted. But on top of that, with divorce and the I can do it by myself attitude, it seems like that's a big fear for men to even want to step in and be a father. What would you say about that?
Oh man, I think it's a case by case, situational basis, because I don't see a problem. Like I father a lot of children, in my program. I don't have an issue with them. I don't have an issue, coming into their lives and making sure they have it. I would prefer that their fathers are active in their lives and stuff like that, and assist
for just 1 second.
Yep.
So, me personally, I would have a issue. I could not share my family with anybody.
Oh, go there. I love it. Let's get it. I was hoping to bring this out of you.
Yeah, I could never.
You're a young man that's been married over a decade. So your perspective is where this hits home for me. So I really want you to dig into this one.
Yeah, I would never ever want to have a phone conversation with another man about my kid. Ever. Never would I want to do that.
Yes.
Even if my wife did something that would possibly end my marriage, in maturity, I would still keep the marriage going, because I couldn't handle what happened afterwards.
Or I need you to say that again.
I would sit in my marriage comfortably if something happened the way that I didn't want it to happen, because I could not watch another man take care of my kids. I couldn't.
You may be a bit too mature for me, and you're still too mature for the manosphere with that statement. That is a powerful statement, and I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't know if I'm strong enough to manifest that reality, but I would hope and pray that I believe I could, because it's that important to me, bro.
Well, being a man, bro, you gotta lose to win sometime, bro.
Yes, man.
That's what being a man is. It's you know, it's a bunch of weird guys out here who want to be praised for doing nothing. It's a bunch of weird guys out here who don't take care of their kids, but they want to be praised for being a man.
Right.
You know, it's weirdos out here who want to be equivalent to women. And then there's men who actually stand up to the battle.
Yeah.
There's people who make things happen. And people think that everybody lives this like this, what is it called? Like Wives of Orange County, or you know, like
real housewives.
Yeah, like Real Housewives lives. Like, bro, people make sacrifices to make things happen. Like, that's life in general.
That's Christ.
That's a fact.
That's Christ. Yeah.
That's a fact.
People don't understand when we say love your wife like Christ loves the church. People like to throw that out there to put some kind of revered responsibility on men, but do we understand the way Christ loved the church? Do we think about that? Because what that means is that he is willing to die for not just imperfect people, but people who went against him and his desires for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's a level of responsibility men do not want to take. You have to die to self to be adequately in that level of leadership.
Yeah. You got to lose to win. Christ became everything that we were in order to save us.
Yeah.
Is that not a lose for everybody to win for grace sake? He became everything that we were, even though he came into the world perfect. He suffered the judgment that we should have suffered.
Right.
He
on
suffered
behalf of men who walked with him, watched his miracles, and denied him the minute he needed him. and people would be so quick to walk away from their marriages nowadays. And we justify it for all kinds of reasons in the name of Christ. So,
we justify a lot of things in the name of Christ.
Yeah.
And Christ was love. Christ also said that he came here to divide too, though. Let's not forget that. But it's not between the righteous and unrighteous that he came in to divide. Like, if I could give you the scripture, but paraphrasing, it's kind of like the religious and people who believe in him. That's the division. That's the division. Do you believe in Christ, or do you believe that you can save yourself by believing in Christ and living a perfect life?
Right.
There's a lot of people who never cursed before. They might go to hell. There's a lot of people who never drank or smoked before.
I think a large portion of the religious community falls into that latter category you named.
Because not everyone that says Lord, Lord shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. That's the scariest thing in the world.
Yes.
The scariest thing in the world.
They like to throw that scripture around to condemn the heathens. But what they miss in that is, what did those people say? They gave Jesus a list of all of the works that they did. Didn't I prophesy in your name? I did this on your behalf, and you denied me? And Jesus said, you never knew me because you thought your works meant something to me. We never had a relationship. You got your reward before man. But then in another parable, Christ tells about the tax collector and the Pharisee. The Pharisee said, praise, oh Lord, I tithe my 10% every chance that I get. And thank you that I'm not like these other heathens and this and that. And all the tax collector did was beat his chest and say, have mercy on me, Lord, I'm a sinner. And Jesus says, surely the latter man will be seen righteous before the first man.
Let's not forget about the parables of the talents either. What about the person with just one talent? Now, there's ways for you to look at that, but he had a lot less work to do than the people with other talents, with more talents than him. And the people with more talents did more work. He had one thing to do and chose not to do it. And then I look back at my life and I'm like, yo, I had one thing to do.
Wow.
One group of people to talk to, and I never shared information with those people. What did I do with my talent?
Wow. I love Sanya's comment. She said, amen. I know I'm not a real housewife, just a real housewife. The irony, without sacrifices, I could not homeschool. Talk about it, Sanya. That's where everybody went, well, I can't afford it. Yes, you can't afford anything in life that you don't want to sacrifice for.
Man, now that's a big hitter. That's a big hitter right there.
Come on, bro. Everything you try is a sacrifice.
You can't have anything without sacrifice. That's it. That's a big hitter.
But people will sacrifice to buy the heavy hitter car and make a car payment they can't afford just so they can floss in front of society and keep up with the Joneses. But they can't afford to invest in their child's education. That's a choice.
So, all right. And the morality of child support part 2, you spoke about your minimalist lifestyle. What put you in a position, and your wife as well, to agree with you to say, hey, we're going to do things minimalistically. We're not going to live this way, and we're going to give our children their best life. What put you in that mindset?
I want to be practical because the spiritual answer is just God. I really can't give you a better answer than that. But I think the practical answer is that we were so humbled from dealing with homelessness that we no longer cared about what people thought about us or keeping up with anyone, because we've been at the bottom and we've seen how happy we were there. I think so many people think they can't be happy there because they're afraid to experience it. But when we were living in and out of hotels after we got evicted, this was right after I got out of the military. My plans fell through for what I was supposed to do when I got out, depending on certain family members that were not dependable. And I should have made a better plan, but I didn't. And when we were homeless, I think with 3 kids at the time and maybe 1 on the way, living in and out of hotels, I'm driving Uber every day to pay for the next hotel. At that point, I just didn't care anymore. I was like, when we get it back together, we're going to get it together for the sake of family. We no longer had to care about, man, because I just could not believe the level of happiness we had sitting in that hotel room, bro. You could never tell me anything again about what it takes to be happy after that.
What gave you happiness after being broken, though? If you could explain that without just saying God, without just saying the name God, like what would be your explanation to that? How can you find happiness in a broken place? Because I would share that with people.
This is the answer. I think what it did is it forced us to love each other and really appreciate the relationships we had internally. We were literally closer. We were in one room together. And this was for, I think, a good 3-4 months before I was able to finally get a place. So it brought us closer. Literally, it made us realize, like, here we are with nothing at all, and we still going to church every Sunday. I was the leader of the outreach team, homeless. And you know what I mean, with a smile on my face in church, talking to people on the streets about their situation, and little do I know my situation ain't no better. And I'm telling them about how good God can be and will be to them. And they're looking up to me like I'm in a better place than them, with no idea that I'm going back to a hotel when we get out of here.
Man, that is your story is similar to my pastor's.
Wow.
So my pastor lost his job, lost his house, lost everything. He told me the very first thing that he did was he gave his life to a children's ministry. That's what he did. Okay. He turned his life over into making other people happy, or to giving other people love. Now, me and you have had this conversation before. Everybody knows about sin.
Yeah.
But not everybody knows about love. Not everybody has this entity that exists that they think that loves them.
Right.
Love is a deciding factor and changes things. I think during that time, I think your wife love also changed you. You know what I mean?
Don't bring me to tears, man. Bro, you don't. Anybody that's not experienced it can never imagine how hard it is as a man to walk into a hotel room every day and look at your kids all around this room, these little people depending on you, and you can't adequately give them what you feel you're supposed to be giving them right now. It's so emasculating, bro. And to have this lady still able to look me in my face, to kiss on me and not treat me like an imbecile, like, was just, it was the most building thing that I'd ever been through. Because in society today, a man like me wasn't worthy of a conversation, much less her submission, her trust, her saying that we depend on you, believe in you, and know you're going to get us out of this. It forced me to man up and believe that I had what it takes. That because she was the first person to ever give me that.
And the people that you spend your life with will be a majority of what you become.
Yeah.
Lives are important. Though people tend not to give them the importance that is needed. My wife made me a way better person. I would probably 9 times out of 10 be dead if it wasn't for my wife.
I believe it.
I was a wild and crazy dude, and my wife calmed me all the way down.
We wouldn't be friends no more. That's for certain. Yeah, the direction you were going, I ain't had no time for that. I ain't had no time. And it's real. I mean, but that's genuine facts that you're speaking in right now.
But love is kind, and then the very next thing that follows after kind is love is patient. Even if you went to the King James, it said love is long suffering. Like what?
Man, that aches to think about.
Yes. And my homeboy Legit is in here, and he's not necessarily like a Bible thumper, but he believes in synchronicity, like down to the T. Like that we're here to build one another up. Yeah. And I really rock with him on that.
You know what I call that? I call that guiding people. Because through our love, that's literally what we do, is build. And the Bible says that God is love. Yeah. A lot of times outside of the Bible, the Spirit of Christ will speak through people's love, bro. And that religious people ain't gonna like that. But Christ is bigger than religion.
That's a fact, bro. And this is why we're called the Church of Heathens. I love the fact that you came up with this name authentically, because nobody will talk about God the way that we talk about God.
No,
Nobody does it.
because the grace of God is radical. And a lot and people can get offended by how radical it is because it takes away their own merits. If I have spent my life earning the respect that I believe I deserve because of my deeds, how dare you think God can love you the same as me when you're a wretched heathen? That offends people.
Yeah. And before I dive into this, the next episode is church hurt, right?
Come on.
So I'll save a little bit of my story for that episode or whatever, because
That's
I'm gonna
Friday.
reveal some stuff on that, yo.
That's
I'm gonna
Friday.
reveal some stuff. Yeah.
Friday.
So we gon' let's continue to build off of these clips.
Word.
King Randall made some. He makes valid points or whatever. I'm still a great believer in a nuclear family. I still think that there is life after marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I just think we should be careful on who we get with. If the loved one that you with requires Louis bags and Gucci bags, and you can't afford those things, then you should not be with her. You should not put on a mask and pretend to take care of her, and you can't, when she's showing you the lifestyle that she wants.
Facts. And I think a lot of men, man, because of feminism, they're so afraid of these women, bro. Great comment, legit. Friend loves at all times, and the brother is born for a time of adversity. I love that. Men are so afraid of these women, bro. And if you can't do it, we gotta be able to say no.
Yeah, that's a fact, though. That is
afraid to say no to they women, bro. And you create that culture of disrespect in your household by doing that. You cannot fold on your leadership. There is a time to be gracious. There is a time to say, baby, yeah, I want to make you happy. And there's a time to say there are other priorities we need to be concerned with. That's leadership. Leadership is not always saying you get what you want. No. Provision is making sure you get what you need. We provide the needs.
And that's where your message goes over everybody's head.
Yes.
Because to be a provider means that you take care of the needs.
My wife ain't never touched a Louis bag.
Yeah.
Like that's not what nobody's saying when I say I have a housewife. We're not talking about the Real Housewives TV shows and all that BS that they perpetrate to further hurt our society. We talking about the real picture. It don't take all that. You know, we're thrifty, man. When you got 8 kids, you got a hell of a lot of hand-me-downs. The 6-year-old, now the 4-year-old has grown into the 6-year-old's clothing. That's a blessing. The 3-year-old has grown into the 4-year-old's clothing. There's some clothes that, bro, there are clothes that have literally touched the backs of every one of my biological kids.
What's wrong with that?
Bro, that is just crazy to me to think. We have a baby carrier that you strap on you and you can put the baby on your chest and, you know, to walk around with. That has literally been used on every one of my kids. Like, we talked about putting that thing in a frame, bro. Like, people overthink this stuff because they so worried about the Joneses. Bro, the minute somebody criticized the way I live, you out of here. I ain't saying that I ain't got thick skin, but I'm talking about the family members that feel like they should dictate the way you live. Stop calling. My kids aren't coming back because we don't live for you. Especially considering that those family members did not live to their own standard when they were parents. They want to put that standard on you and forget what it was like when they had to be a parent.
Well, everybody fell in love with materialism. Everybody fell in love with that.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea overall. I have a bunch of stuff in my face, but a lot of the stuff that I use in my face, I bought it for a reason, and I procrastinated for so long. And that's me owning up to me not doing what I know I was supposed to be doing. Like, you literally hit me with this the other day after a show. You're like, well, isn't this your message? If you talk about it so much, why aren't you doing this? And I was like,
bro, that's my new motto.
Can't make excuses for it.
When people come at me telling me what I should be doing, I'm like, oh, sound like God put that on your heart. Why don't you get it popping? Don't give me nothing else on my itinerary. My schedule is packed. I'm good. God has given me my assignment. Now, if it resonates with me, cool. I'll pray on it. But 90% of the time, people want to, and this ain't you because you weren't doing this, but in extreme circumstances, there are people in my life that want to dictate the way I ought to be functioning in my assignment. The things that God has spoken to me and you had no idea about. You didn't even know this was coming down the pike and have the nerve to think you ought to be able to tell me how to do it.
I think people get blessed from watching you, though, because I mean, even me not knowing a thing, because me and you didn't talk for a couple of months. Yeah. And when I see you treading along in life, I'm like, bro, that's how far faith gets you.
Talk about it, bro.
You know what I mean? So you get
to a point where you don't look like your story no more. And that's why it's important to share.
Yeah.
People hear these things and be like, okay, here I am judging this guy. Here I am hating on the damn guy. And I ain't even know what the fuck he done been through.
There you go. There you go.
And sometimes I hate having to do that. That's my pride speaking. I hate that I have to tell the lowest parts of my life for somebody to respect me for doing what God has told me to do.
Well, you probably get the respect without going through those lower parts of your life. Those lower parts of your life is where you actually found your strength.
Right. And I get to the point where I'm just like, yo, I don't even care to prove nothing to y'all no more.
It's wild and crazy. And I'm not saying this about you because this is a complete hypothetical, but just me listening to your story, I'm like, yo, it seems like he was married before, but he found love in struggle.
Wow. Yeah.
And the next time I go through something, I'm like, I should complain less because James 1. Consider it all joy when you face trials and tribulations of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance.
I want to get to this real quick. Science says storms happen that can catch even the best provider off guard. Everything is sweet when you're able to skip through the forest holding hands. God already checking me about my response. Thank you, Holy Spirit. What about when you get hurt and sick? The answer that God wants me to say is that God's the best provider. He don't get caught off guard. So your answer in regards to me as the man is correct. But when my faith is in him, I ain't got to worry about none of that because he already knew it was coming, babe. Whatever comes, he already knew about it. And I don't really understand the context. We throw out these worst case scenarios as if it feels like the undertone is trying to advise against the idea of men providing by throwing out the caveat that someone could get hurt or sick as if that's the everyday life of the provider. Why do we think worst case scenario in our lives when it's time to put men in the leadership responsibility that they were designed to carry?
Well, even in worst case scenario, there are servicemen and women who have lost limbs and they still continue to work. So when it comes down to it, when you want to provide, you provide. That's pretty much it. There are people who have disabilities who work hand in hand with people who are able.
Yes.
So,
because one of the signs of being the best provider is finding a way. Okay, maybe I can't be a firefighter no more, but whatever I can do is got to get done. If it's set in my heart that that's what I got to do for my family, if that's what my faith is tied to, God ain't never let me down. I've seen it. You can't sell me no fear. You cannot sell me an idea of a day where I won't be able to do, when God has showed me how I'm able to do it by his grace in any situation. I don't have that way of thinking. Maybe I had it before I've seen his hand, but at this point, that's not a place in my mind anymore. And I think sometimes the things that happen to you in your life are according to your faith. If that's what you believe is going to happen, that's what you're waiting for. What does the Bible say? Oh, I got to find the scripture because I don't want to misquote it, but it's so many words. Sometimes men will manifest their worst fears.
I've done that.
and a lot of people does that. And it's important to really keep your mind set on what you can do and doing the best that you can in any situation. Staying content, always remembering. I mean, we got so many examples of faith in the Bible to look to of God. We've had God come through for men who were standing in furnaces. And you want to talk to me about the best provider and a worst case scenario, what can't be done? No, that's not my God. We talking about the God that parted the sea. That's not my God. I don't understand that language. I'm just being honest. There's not a time where I'm going into anything. I'm a doubt. I'm a struggle. I'm a cry. But on the back of that is the understanding that I know God is going to come through. Otherwise, he ain't a God. What the hell we serving him for if he can't do that? Now, that's something you only go hear in Church of Heathens because your pastor's scared to say it. I ain't serving no God that can't come through.
That's a fact.
And God ain't gonna strike me down for saying that because he know that he can. All it takes is the faith of a mustard seed.
Now that's a good conversation because I think me and you had that before.
Yeah, that's enough of a conversation to have a whole topic about.
Because to me, faith is hard. Faith is a hard thing. If you can move a mountain with faith the size of a mustard seed, how hard is it for you to mustard faith?
It's a lot of ways to look at that. Some would say the moving mountains was a parabolic way of saying how big faith is. Mm-hmm. I'm a more literal approach about the Bible, but I do know Jesus spoke in parables. But like I told you before, I see it differently. I see it as he was telling us how easy faith is, and most of us talk ourselves out of it with our fears.
I slightly.
Let me explain. Perfect example. And I'm not picking on you, Sister Sonya, but this was just a great teaching moment. Perfect example. This is a woman, if I'm not mistaken, I'm a judge by amen, is a woman of faith. Mm-hmm. And this is something I do as well, Sonya. So when I say I'm not picking on you, this is just a teaching moment. But at the same time, in the midst of being a woman of faith, has placed a limitation on God. To me, that is the biggest problem in our faith community, is that we think that God moves within limitations.
Yeah, but biblically, it's also said the power is given to those who seen and believe, but much more power shall be given to those who have not seen and believe.
Absolutely.
Like, I know my transition was manifested on the inside.
Facts.
I felt something move in me that has never ever happened before, and it stripped me from a lot of stuff. I went through like in my time of finding faith, I went through an ego death. And that's not easy to recover from if anybody knows what that is. Like I figured out that a lot of myself was false.
Wow.
So I actually went through an ego death when I found Christ, because when I actually found him, because I lived a life to where I thought that I believed in him.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I didn't have my trust in him. I had my trust in what I could accomplish. Well, I don't do this sin no more. I don't sin like this no more. I don't sin like this no more. So therefore, I had control over everything, and then I didn't turn it over to what biblical scripture says is him being the propitiation for our sins. So I had to kill myself, literally.
Yeah.
Well, not literally, but like
literally in spiritual, on a spiritual level, though. Yeah.
I had to take myself out of the picture.
Yeah.
And the only way that I keep myself in the picture is me being thankful.
Yeah. The only factor, and this is me relating to what you just said, Smitty, because you saying you grew past that. I still do that to this day. I still place myself in the way of my obstacles. I still say I'm not good enough for this thing.
I didn't say that I don't procrastinate no more. I didn't say that. So don't put that on me. I'm starting to do more. Like I played a little bit of the video before the show started, and I was like, I need to reshoot it. But the fact that I shot it in the first place is, I'm like, all right, yeah, it's nothing for me to shoot it again. You know what I mean? Sometimes
I'm not even talking about just procrastination. I'm talking about I will literally in my mind say, this probably ain't gonna happen for me because of this reason. I ain't good enough for this. They not gonna accept me. Why am I even wasting my time here? And the only thing that gets me through those obstacles, because that's nothing but the enemy, is reconciling the reality that I'm not qualified for anything in my life. And the only thing that got me all of this is the grace of God. And when I put it back on Christ and the fact that he died to qualify me, I can erase my qualification from the situation and just step into it like Peter stepped on the water. Because Peter ain't stepped on the water because he was a great guy, because it's the same guy that denied Jesus after the fact. This is the same guy that was ready to
what's my man name who talked about crazy faith?
Mike Todd.
I think he actually encapsulated that moment perfectly. He said if everybody had faith on that boat, then there would have been more than one person walking on the water.
Yes. And that's what we don't like to recognize. We like to lie to ourselves and say we got faith. And that's why I think the struggle with the mustard seed situation exists. We'll lie and say we got faith. But like you brought up James, you do not have faith if there is no action produced from it. You're lying, because faith requires action. It's not that you have to act to prove your faith. It's that when real faith swells in you, you can't not act. Because how do I believe God's gonna do it if I'm not moving? That's not possible.
Legit says the warrior's first step. I like that.
Hold on, let me get that up. Yep. Sonya, yep. She said, understand, I meant that if a time comes when the man can't do what he's used to, you can lean on each other. Your hotel example with your wife. Being supportive is easy when things are good. Okay, I can respect that. And that's real. She also said, no worries. I don't take it that way. I appreciate the message. It's the good stuff. Glad I caught this live. Amen. Thank you, sister. I'm assuming by the name. Sorry if I'm wrong. Legit said, what's the difference between faith and a wager? The difference between faith and a wager is that the wager is that you're literally gambling with no substance on the end. It's actual luck. With faith, I'm gambling with the idea on the end that God is going to pull me into the reality that I'm hoping for.
Big difference.
Yeah.
The wager, sometimes the wager is promised goods because you could probably see the other end of it. Faith is something that you don't see. Sometimes faith is you stepping off a cliff. Not necessarily that, because Bible instinctively instructs you not to jump off a cliff and then say, God, I believe in you, catch me. But I mean, like, sometimes that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to your career life. It feels like you stepped off a cliff and you got beaten all the way down, and then you get built up with no recognition to yourself. And then you understand that there's no recognition in you. There's only recognition in him.
Right.
Because who got you in the situation?
I like this question he asked. What if I wager my kindness bears fruits? This is the thing that I want to ask you, and I hate to answer your question with a question. Sorry. What if I wager that my kindness bears fruits? What made you decide to make that wager? Because the reason I asked that, there are people that wouldn't make that wager. There are a lot of people out here that are only going to be kind to the people that they know or will reciprocate it to them.
What if my wager?
Here we go. Then I think we're crossing paths in the same belief system, bro. You just don't call it Christ. I honestly do. Because if you're saying that love causes you to wager that your kindness bears fruits, that is literally what we are taught to do in this faith. So I believe that if you're saying love, then that means you have faith in love. You believe that the love would carry your wager to the desired result.
I say, let's bring them in.
Yeah, hey, yeah. I'm gonna drop you the link, bro, if you want to hop on here. That's a great point. Let me find the link for him.
Let me use the bathroom while you do that, and then let's try. Hey, legit, if you could join, bro.
And I'm gonna star that. For anyone else who would like to join too, you are free and more than welcome. While he's in the restroom, let's get up to this next clip. Family values, salute for the swords. We already know iron sharpens iron. That's what we do here in the Church of Heathens. Shout out to everybody that is just joining. We are reviewing the BLEXIT Talks Black Fathers Matter. This is the reaction show. This show aired on Tuesday, featuring King Randall, Frederick Tappan, and Craig Long. Let's get back into this clip.
Of them, but that shouldn't be that child's fault. It ain't that they didn't ask to be here, know. So
exactly.
but if you truly love that woman, you have to love that baggage that come along with her, and that may be children, and just like they said, a little 80-20 thing. You're gonna love 80% of them, and you're gonna hate 20%. Yeah. So you got to make sure that 20% is worth you dealing with, and that may be a child that you may have to end up having to help raise. Wow. So that again, that's just case by case. Now, if the mama don't want you to help discipline the child, etc., like these again, case by case, because you got some mamas who don't want you to say nothing back to their baby.
That's a big thing.
You can't discipline them.
You got some of the kids ain't gonna just accept mama's
new man.
Stepdad. You know,
let's go there.
Especially like a 13-year-old.
One of them children.
I couldn't imagine if a man came in trying to put order in my house. I won't try to hear that.
Yeah, man. I used to give my mama's boyfriend so much trouble. So, ladies, we telling you, kind of ease it in on the children. Yeah. Don't drop it.
Big point there. I don't know if you ever had a stepdad, Smitty. And Legit came up. Welcome to the show, my brother Legit.
Hey, thank you for having me. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. You can.
And I don't know what's going on with my camera.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never seen that before.
It's the first time I've seen this as well. Okay. So I apologize if my full dimensions aren't coming through.
It's all good. But yeah. Great conversation points, man. I want to challenge you on that too before we get back to stuff.
I love being challenged on the nature of love. It's one of my favorite conversations.
Yeah, because it intrigues me to hear the things you're saying because it's making the Bible more real to me. Even though you're speaking outside of the Bible, it's just crazy ironic for me. Go ahead.
This is where I connected with Homie. And I mean, this is kind of like one of the bases of our friendship. I feel like that's kind of led us to talking to each other on a regular basis. Is this exact same phenomenon where both of us were like, hold on a second. How come you think this stuff when you seem to be so different than me?
Yeah.
Based on the certain nomenclature of the times and whatnot. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's been really fantastic process. I've been learning so much. A little bit of history. I'll make this as fast as I can. I was raised on the Bible, and I was raised in a very stifling environment around that. So at a young age, I put it aside and I walked away. I looked for other things. And in my life, I'm almost 50 now. And I have found myself making a surprising 180-degree turn back into essentially religion and spirituality as fundaments of the human experience. And so my experience coming away from essentially rejecting the path of religion or spirituality, it was Christianity, but I don't actually think it's super important for what we're talking about to hone in on that specific branch of human consciousness. Is that after leaving that philosophy because I saw abuse in it, right? At a young age, I saw abuse and I rejected it. I paid a price for that. And I went out on my own and was like, I want to find my own answers. And only in my older age did I come to the realization that in my search for answers around the understanding of the nature of love was that there was a seed that was planted when I was young. I wasn't able to even know it was planted until I was much older, which was this belief that the words that I was reading in the Bible contained some truth. And I'm not the arbitrator of truth. I'm going to be very clear, right? So I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm here to decide. I know what's true or not. That's not what I'm saying, right? That's why I'm searching. I'm searching, learning, wondering.
Yeah, we all search.
Right. And so like when I read about Jesus, when I was young and I was going through things in my community and things in the religion I was in that were toxic, I learned how to really doubt and really question and be skeptical, which is kind of a sin in the environment I was raised in, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I realized that the words of Jesus that I read resonated with me no matter what. And it wasn't because it was Jesus. Right. It was because the words they felt true. Simple stuff. Treat your neighbor like you want to be treated. Like, why would I cast that aside? That was kind of my point. And, I've talked to Homie about something similar to this conversation, which is essentially that, like, love is so omnipresent. I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but you don't even got to call it God. You can. I'm not mad if someone does, because I think at the end of the day, the fundamentals are sound.
Yeah.
Right. I strongly believe, almost on a scientific level, I very much believe in science, that love is the fabric of all of reality.
Wouldn't that make it God then?
That's my point. At that point, why do we even got to trip off the name?
Yeah.
Why can't we observe what it is, what it does, and how we move with it?
I like point. I'm with you on that now. And that's challenging. I get it though, to the Christian community. I can rock with you making love the center foundation, even as a Christ follower, because that's literally what Jesus told us to do.
And I don't even think it's possible this is my wager. This is my faith. I don't think it's possible ever to not be in love. ever, because again, it is the core fabric of reality. It's the creative force of reality. And the opposite of that force, which I feel like gets projected on as the devil, understandably so, is entropy.
What does that word mean?
Entropy is a very, very abstract and difficult scientific concept. It's not just scientific. The concept of entropy is ancient because it's literally everything that breaks things apart. Entropy is the non-energy that is the sum totality of all that is falling apart and breaking down into its core essence. It's death.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would you at all relate that to fear?
100%. 100%.
What I believe.
Entropy is the dry scientific explanation for the worst of all things. It's death. It is literally death. It is the death of yourself. It's the death of everything, because nothing in the material world lasts forever. Everything dies, right? Everything dies. Right. Even an idea can die. And there's all kinds of different ways things can die. But to ground this conversation a little bit, to make the concept of entropy more accessible and not super like out there and wild, there's two scientific theorem or perspective around entropy. There's thermodynamic entropy, which is the energy produced in a system that doesn't serve the system, and because it doesn't serve the system, it causes interruption in the system. So, for instance, the heat of your engine in your car is a form of thermodynamic entropy. That heat's not doing anything except maybe warming the cat when you park, right? So the heat of the engine, if it gets too extreme, the engine breaks down. The heat is the waste product. It's waste energy, right? In the engine, in thermodynamics. There's another shade of entropy, which has a very boring German name called Van Neumann entropy. And this is the scientific observation of the breaking down of non-material patterns. So an accessible example of Van Neumann entropy would be a lie, right? It's a communication is a non-material thing, right? But if I tell you X, Y, Z, and you hear X, Y, Z, and then you perceive with your own senses X, Y, Z, we've got the beginnings of a truth, right? Okay. And the actions and trusts that you put in that process will build that, right? Because love is a building thing. You know, when we work with each other as human beings, we build through love.
Yes.
Right? So the opposite of that is disruption, breaking things down, interrupting things. Those things are not always bad, but generally disruption is going to lean towards the less pleasant side of things, right? Like for instance, if you get a fungus, a mold ripping through your house, that's a form of entropy, right? Except for the mold. The mold's in a creative state. So entropy and creativity work together, which is you know, with no disrespect to anybody, there's interesting parallels there in observing like the God energy and the devil energy within us. That which is destroying, challenging, and breaking down, that's what's building up and creating. And the interaction between the two.
I'm inclined to agree with you though.
Is there a scientific word beyond love that you could use, this opposite of entropy?
Creativity. I was literally just having this conversation.
Love creation. Is creator.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm pretty sure this shit. Pardon me. I don't mean to curse on your podcast. I'm pretty sure.
Hey, bro, you could be accepted. You don't got to defend us or none of that. I want you to be you.
Okay, cool. Yep. I'm pretty sure what we're talking about can be scientifically proven and threat to faith. I know that's a bold claim, and I know it's a claim that can threaten people's faith. But
why does it being scientifically proven have to threaten faith though?
That seems to be the case at times, often. And I'm not saying it has to be the case, but I'm just saying it just seems to be.
You
right?
just explained though with your comment that you would wager kindness bears fruit because, in so many words, you have faith in love. How
Yeah.
faith?
So this,
I think if anything, it threatens religion.
So wait, so can you frame that question? Can you say that question for me again, please?
Yes. So if you were saying that, what if I wager my kindness bears fruits? And I said,
why would you make that wager?
Make that wager, and you say love. Then
and I said love.
That tells me that you put the faith in love. Then
yes, precisely.
So would that? How did that threaten faith? Would it not just threaten religion then?
Because people often expect. So one of the things I wrote in one of my little poems recently was that love owes no flavor or concession.
Okay.
Just like the cells of your body as they do their thing, don't owe you, your ego, your identity, anything. They're just doing their miraculous ass nature of generating energy from fucking soup. Like our bodies are, I don't even want to go on the miracles of our bodies, but like the point is
you said the miracles of our bodies?
Our bodies are miracles, man. Like that's one thing. I don't think this is where people start looking at me like, okay, you're talking religious shit. I'm like, I'm not. Like you're talking
science.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, but this isn't. I mean, this isn't science, but this is just how I feel about observing life. It's freaking miraculous, man. Like the things that life does to persevere, given the asymmetrical nature of like how the universe is almost all entropy. Right? Think about it. We're like this smudge on a little rock in the spans of space that are like almost incomprehensible. And the stuff it takes, what it takes for that life to emerge is absolutely baffling. I mean, this is a weird parallel, but I was just reading about like how in the act of reproduction, how threatening the uterus, the whole pathway is to sperm, like what they have to go through. It's almost like nature is like trying to stop it, almost like the process. And then what happens is that the competition between the sperm they just recently discovered also seems to have some kind of cooperative process where you could almost sum it up like we're all in this together, but only one of us are going to make it. But we're all in it together. We're going to make sure that one of us makes it. And that conflict, right? It's like the chances.
Doesn't that explain hierarchy, like in a way?
Not necessarily. The thing about thinking about hierarchy is people often approach it linearly. And that's when you get these two-dimensional hierarchies where it's stacked from low to high. The hierarchy doesn't work like that. Hierarchy can go all kind of funky directions, right? Like what's down for one organism is up for another, right? So it's.
I agree with you in totality in that.
And then there's like inward and outward, and then it's so complicated that the thing about hierarchy is generally most people they're just licking their lips, ready to be like, cool, who do I get to stand on top of? Whose neck do I get a boot on? Just tell me what the hierarchy's called, and I'll say yes, sir. You know?
I think that's I think that's misdirected because a lot of people think that at the top of hierarchies is just power. And I believe at the top of hierarchies are competence. Like in my religious beliefs, I would put God's thoughts above mine.
So I think there's a bridge.
I would like the spreadsheet that I would create would have God creating the hierarchy, but he would be at top.
So here's the paradox then.
Okay.
That I see, and I could be mistaken, right? I probably am. We're all ignorant, right? If God is all things, right, then doesn't that mean that God is therefore also the things we don't think are God?
I actually agree, and I think most Christians wouldn't. I do though, because there is a place in the Bible where it says that God created evil, and that challenges a lot of
Well,
Christians.
I mean, it just stands to reason. If God was the first thing ever, everything came from God. Everything is therefore God, literally, literally. And if God is all knowing and all powerful, then there's really, it's like, this is what I like about the Buddhists is they hit it from the perspective of all is as it should be, right? The transcendence of right and wrong, which doesn't mean causality and observation of that is thrown out the window in favor of delusion, but the transcendence of good and evil lets the observer process the totality of it without judgment and fear.
That
right?
is a fact. I mean, because how could we judge what is good without evil?
I see, at this point in my development, I just think of evil as highly concentrated entropy. And I'll break that down for you, right? So if love, right, so like, homie, you and I were talking the other day, and you said if it wasn't for the love and the support that I received from people around me, I never would have been able to get out of what I was doing and get to where I was, right? Something to that nature, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that love, that support, that's creative, right?
Right.
Like you grew from that. It's like water on a plant. Like,
it built you.
Right. Mm-hmm. So let's just say that didn't happen. Right. So the psychosocial representation, not representation, but manifestation of entropy is going to be disease, suffering, cognitive dissonance, trauma, mental illness. And it's all those things are representation of entropy, right? You're born as a baby, and your system's just like boom. I mean, it's like being in a room with a new baby. It's like, damn, that vibe is clear. It's just like, it's just pure being there.
Yeah.
And then it's the impacts, right? The impacts shape the impacts shape the impacts shape. The impacts are the disruptions. The cool thing about life is it can get hit with some entropic energy and heal.
Yeah. But wouldn't cognitive dissonance be chosen entropy?
Well, it depends. If you raise a child to believe something that's cognitively dissonant their whole life, and they're incentivized to believe it and punished for not believing it, is it a choice? Is coercion a choice?
I got a question I've been trying to get in here really quick, if I can, before I lose.
Word. I talk a lot. I'm sure.
No, you fine. You making some great points. I might butcher the word, but is it entropy?
Yes, ENTROPY.
Thank you. So in that explanation you gave about how the body fights against the sperm or the process of creating life. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying, it sounds as if the entropy exists within the body, but the love exists somewhere unseen.
The truth is they both exist simultaneously in all things at every level of observation. But our perspectives have to limit that conversation so we can function. It's like one of my favorite Bible verses. I'm not a Christian. I love this verse. No one can look upon God and live. Something of that nature. Right? I don't know if I got the verse correctly. But the more I see the totality of love in my ability to perceive it, the more I get that. It's like the ego cannot maintain in the face of omnipresent love.
You preach, man.
Because here's the thing.
Right. I've been broken
to keep us
love at times. Yeah.
The ego's there to help us navigate.
Yeah.
Right? It has to cut out all the information. If we had all the information all the time, we wouldn't be able to navigate. Right? And so that's like this weird thing where all of a sudden it's like you kind of got to learn how to love entropy. You got to learn how to shift the perspectives of evil, because if you think about it, you find someone who's been through nothing but trauma their whole life, born in trauma, raised in trauma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The practical question here that all this conversation matters to is, can this person heal?
Right.
Can healing come into this?
This is the power of loving your enemies.
Yeah. It's the power of love, period.
Yeah. Because I'm saying because it's easier though for us to love the people that love us back.
Right, because pleasure pain response, right?
Right.
Physical pain, physical pleasure, and abstract pain and abstract pleasure are so, like I'm not like a scientist, but I'm into these studies, and I've read essentially that when you look at how consciousness works, like in the really complex systems of our bodies, how your neurology processes physical pain and like emotional perceived pain are almost completely identical, to the degree where if I'm understanding the work of these people that are studying this correctly, what that means is that essentially the ego is what decides what's real pain or not. The body can't tell. It doesn't know. It doesn't care. It's there to manage the process and heal. Right? It's not there to decipher good or bad. That's what the mind does. The ego, one's thoughts, one's mind presence.
Is there an aspect of torment in entropy?
100%. It's literally death. What do most people fear?
Death.
The death of their things, of their loved ones, of themselves, of their perspective desires on reality. Literally all things will break down and die. That's one of my favorite lessons from like studying Buddhism. I'm not a Buddhist, right? I'm just a seeker. I'm trying to understand love. Right? Yeah. Because ultimately what I've been trying to understand my whole life is, why are people hurting each other so much? Why? It doesn't make any sense. There's got to be a reason. This doesn't emerge from a vacuum.
This is one of my favorite scriptures, and this is all I could hear in everything you're saying right now.
Let me see. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. Fear hath torment. He that feareth is not perfect in love. I mean, that's kind of talking about the core of it right there. Like, yeah, it's like the Buddhist symbol of the yin and the yang, right? The yin represents like negative charge, entropy. Like you could say in this binary that we're talking about, the yin would be the black within the black-white swirl. That's right. The black would be the entropy, and the white would be the creativity. Or you could switch it. It doesn't matter.
Or the light, as we would call it, I guess.
The light. I mean, light is definitely a huge structure of like reality. So like that could be a scientific bridge there as well. But the point being is, in either one of those swirling in the yin yang symbol, each one has the opposite as its eye, right? So entropy has a little dot of creativity in the middle of it blossoming, and then creativity has a little dot of entropy of subtractive energy that's dissolving, and both of them are critical. Both of those things are part of the whole, and they're not even separate things when you look at certain levels of resolution, like aspects of, physics and biology. They're so small and or fast that they're irrelevant to our egos, but you can still observe it when we have the tools to slow those things down and look at them.
So with so many parallels then between your belief system and our faith, do you mind sharing what it is that turned you off from Christianity, or if it's not too much or too touchy?
Yeah. Well, so I, full transparency, I was raised by Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
And it's difficult for me to speak about this because I don't want to speak anything but love, but I also want to speak the truth. And what I saw was people that were doing their best to love and at the same time normalizing abuse. Wow. Right. And I would not have used those words at the time. I would not learn how to use those words for many, many, many years. But when I was a young man, I tried to end my life because of the conflict of it all within me.
Wow.
And
you mean in the form of condemnation?
Wait, what?
When you say abuse, do you mean in the form of condemnation?
No. I mean like physical abuse. Like it was. I grew up hearing the sounds of kids being beat in the bathroom at the places of worship regularly. Okay. And not only that, there's like there's aspects to, it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses, but Christianity in general that, I mean, I really want to tread carefully here.
Please don't, bro. I promise you, I'm not offended. I don't do that.
There's what I believe are outmoded styles of organizing that were like super relevant when the books were written, and not only that, like the books have been changed over time so much. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not a historian, but I'm pretty sure people have rolled up their sleeves and taken some blades to that book and edited out things they didn't like over time. And so at that point, you know,
it's a matter of trust in what we're reading and things like that.
Right. But it's like I said, I lost trust in the organization that was teaching me these things. But I didn't need anybody's permission. I didn't need any physical validation to take things from the book for myself. Right? Things like God is love. No one can look upon God and live. Treat your neighbor as you want to be treated yourself. Right? On and on. There's like a ton of like Jesus is the jam. and that was pretty much what I took from the religion. I was like, I'm throwing everything out, but not because I'm told to or because it's supposed to be right or wrong, but this other stuff, this just makes sense. So I'm keeping this until it's proven wrong. And it hasn't been proven wrong yet for me. Right? Yeah. And so when it comes to a lot of the normalized abuse, there was literal child abuse that was justified. Don't spare the rod, spare the rod, spare the child. Right. A zealous parent, really, they love them scriptures. That when they're needing a reason to just kind of let themselves go, so to speak. And the persecution of people that don't adhere to certain social roles. Okay. So, issues with gender, sexuality, things like that. Right. Hyper controlling.
Homosexuality, things along that line.
That stuff also like a lot of reinforcement of patriarchy, which I that's like a hot button word these days. It's like and it's almost like so played, I almost don't even like talking about it anymore, which is funny because nobody was talking about this 10, 15 years ago, and now everybody's talking about it. And 10, 15 years ago, I was like, wish everybody was talking about this. Nobody talks about this. Now everybody's talking about it. I'm like, all right, we need new words.
Do you believe okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, please go ahead. Please.
Do you believe in your heart that there is a right or wrong, or do you think everybody makes their own standard in that regard?
I do think it is subjective. I do. Okay. And I think we can find commonalities. And I think both of those things will change over time because everything's always changing. Right. Everything's always changing because everything's constantly being destroyed while creation keeps creating. That process has changed, right? So constantly, everything is always changing. And
can I ask you a follow-up question? How do you reconcile that thought with the idea of
love,
finding problem with those people who were what you called abusing the children? Then
can you,
if you're saying that what is right and wrong is subjective, if they think that's right, wouldn't it be right then?
To them, and I get their logic. Yeah. Like if you have to beat your kids, otherwise they're not going to do the things you want them to do. Like it's pretty straightforward logic, right? But
well, let me get a worse example then, just to clarify. Then let's talk the R word that you're not supposed to say on YouTube, or the M word, molestation, something like that.
Oh yeah. So violate. You're talking about violation.
Violating a child. If there were people who believe that is okay and it's subjective to them.
I simply disagree with them. And I get that we have different perspectives because, again, right or wrong is pretty subjective. But again, so we can find like commonalities.
That their perspective ought to be accepted as righteous if it's genuinely their perspective.
No. Boundaries are a part of love.
Okay.
Without
I love that.
Think about it. Like you can love somebody with every fiber of your being. You still might need some time to yourself now and again. Okay. Right? Like, boundaries are filters, right? It's like if you look at how our cells work, the membrane of the cell is almost literally a brain. That's like a logic unit that's dictating what's going in and out, right? It's not just some inert balloon that stuff just happens to bump into and suck in. Like, it's actually making what you could say are conscious decisions given the level of consciousness that it's at a very micro level, right? But it's not like an egoic decision. It's like a logic, it's data exchange, right?
I have a question. If entropy is the opposite of love,
Mm-hmm.
the thing about entropy, the part of it that I might not understand is I can love somebody with every fiber of my being, but it still does not remove the fact that I'm getting older and older every day.
Exactly.
And that my body is going to experience entropy.
Yes.
Right?
Which
is a destructive nature.
Yeah.
Now, you use the laws of thermodynamics, correct? So energy is neither created nor destroyed.
Right.
What happens at the end of life?
So, I sure do not know. I have my wagers, and I have my theories, and I have my curiosities, and I have my preferences, right? I personally, if I had to choose an afterlife, I'm going for the Buddhists. I'm going for the Buddhist perspective, right? Which is, yeah. And I mean, how do I say this? I'm biased. I'm just one dude. Like, I don't know what's at the end. I don't even know what's real at the end of the day. I'm operating off of the best I got with what we're all operating off.
That's what faith is. We don't know either. We're choosing to believe what we believe.
And how I grew up around the idea of heaven, the idea of heaven itself became a stifling thing I did not want. Didn't mean I was choosing to suffer. I mean, I did suffer, and a lot of that was unconscious choosing, but that's not my point. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I reject the idea of feeling good in such a dramatic way that it feels heavenly. It was that the idea of living in a state that is static and never changing is terrifying to me personally. That would be a form of hell, right? Mm-hmm. Just living the same experience infinitely, that sounds like a prison to me personally. No cap or shade on anybody. It's like they're into that. The Buddhist perspective is that there's something after all this, and they have their perspective around, like, greater beings and entities and God forms and da 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 da. Personally, I'm not concerned with that, because what I like about the Buddhist idea of the afterlife is essentially that you're going to just keep coming back until you figure love out. Right? Like, until you figure it out, you're just coming back to keep learning. Wow. And then when you finally figure out the answer to love for yourself, which is highly likely going to be related to others, right? That's when you move on to some other state. And I think,
how do you figure it out, though, if you come into a new life without the memories of the lessons you learned from the old life?
Well, technically, from a scientific perspective, there is evidence that shows that data from our ancestors is transmitted to us. Okay. I mean, that's technically true with DNA, right? There's a thing called
wouldn't that also mean, though, if they're coming back, if they can trace that data within us, that they didn't get it either?
So there's a thing, though, that again, I'm not a Buddhist.
That's a great point, Smitty. That was a great question.
But can you break it down for me again? I want to make sure I heard it right.
Like, well, if our ancestors in our past are, and it's proven that they're living in us, if they're living in us, isn't that proof that they never got it together? Because they wouldn't come back within us if they got the love thing correct, right?
The thing is that this is really, so I feel like this conversation hinges on whether or not you believe in the concept of a soul, right? And
do you?
I'm not sure, man. I'm crunching on something in my head to around this
What
conversation.
happens when you die? Like something is there, and if you and I
If
don't
it could
know,
get into the next life in another body, then there had to be a force there that exists outside the body.
Can I share a story with you that I went through? I went through what I think it's fair to call it a spiritual experience. And it was
I want to share something with you, but go ahead.
Okay, cool. I'll try to make this succinct because I know I can ramble. I was doing a personal growth workshop with some people, which is basically a very dry way to say a bunch of weirdos were doing a bunch of weird ritual stuff, trying to unlock ourselves, essentially, in a cooperative, disciplined environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we did stuff like walking on fire and stuff. Like it was gnarly. It's cool as hell. But there was a portion of it where we did this stuff called holotropic breathing, which is a form of meditation that involves almost like hyperventilating with someone laying gentle hands on your sternum and on your throat.
Somebody helping you pass out?
No, not at all. It's just it's so hard to describe.
That's the knockout game.
No, it's basically you're using a combination of the breath, which is it's kind of hyperventilating, but it's not like you're not panicking. You're breathing strongly, really strongly. You just big, huge in and out breaths, like as much power as you could summon in your breath. And you're laying down, and someone's laying a hand gently on your solar plexus, very gently, and on your throat. And that pressure provides like a resistance that causes something within to push back, if that makes sense, right? And I'm not at all here to promote like drug use or anything to anybody, because I know that's a really intense topic for people. But if you're someone who's done psychedelics and you understand what psychedelic experience is like, which is not limited to drugs, the experience I had doing this breath work was essentially one of the most psychedelic experiences I've ever had. And in that process, the question I was carrying with me through it was like, just why are we hurting each other, right? And it was a question that I was asking myself. I was asking how it applied to my relationships and the relationships I was struggling with at the time. But then it applied beyond that. Every relationship I'd ever had, every relationship that I was ever going to have, and then every relationship that I witnessed around me, et cetera. Why are we hurting ourselves? And as I was thinking about that, I already have an overactive imagination. So I hadn't even noticed that in my mind's eye, I had started this weird process where all of a sudden I was behind the eyes of a soldier shooting another soldier. And then boom, I was gone. And then I was behind the eyes of somebody else striking out somebody else down in anger. And then boom, I was gone. I was in somebody else's eyes again and again and again. I was the aggressor. I was like 1,001 aggressors flying by over and over and over again. And then I was the one being murdered. Then I was the one weeping for the one who lost their child to this. It was just like every position one could be in the position of loss, aggression, predation, damage, trauma, cycling. I just put it went all the fucking way through me, all of it, till it was just a blur. And I swear to God, from that was whatever my personification of entropy, which again, I'll call it the devil, like emerged within me. And it was basically like you rang, like you had a question. Your question was, why do we hurt each other? Well, I'm here to tell you. It's because you create me. I'm merely doing what it is that you are asking me to do. Right? With all your anger, all your pain. I am here. I am the servant of that, facilitating what you want your pain to spread. I'm not your enemy. I'm your servant. And then this presence that I had in my experience, it then was basically, this sounds so wild, man. It basically said, like, would you like me to show you why? I was like, sure. And it melted away. And behind it, because it was like this black fire. It was like literally like the dark, it was like black crystal fire that I was looking at. It had these eyes that were so beautiful. This weird entropic entity. And then the blackness melted away, and I realized that they weren't eyes at all. They were holes. They were windows that were showing it was behind the entropy. What was behind it was an incomprehensible sphere that made perfect sense, but didn't make any physical sense. Like there's no way that a machine like this could exist. It was like a sphere with all these different moving segments, and all the segments were all working with each other. And there was all these weird letters that were like encrusted with all these weird gems all over it. And I broke. I was already on my back, but if I was on my feet, I would have fallen to my knees and immediately started worshiping. Not out of choice. At a complete 100% instinctual reaction. I had no choice over the matter. My body was just like, bow. This is love. And all I could think to myself was, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for every lie I've ever told. I'm so sorry for every aggression, every transgression, every single thing I've done. I'm so sorry. I have all this shame, all this guilt, all this horror from everything I've ever done that isn't love. And this thing looked at me and it was like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat yourself. I don't understand. I only speak love. So if you have something other than that you need, I'm not here for that. Here's more love, just more love. And it just melted away all the other stuff, like, and it didn't mean I was all of a sudden devoid of fear, shame, or any of that stuff, but it was a reflection of what is not those things. And I don't know if that's God or not. I think it doesn't matter. I think that's not special to me. I think that's in every single one of us.
You died 1,000 lives while still in the same body, though, which is, I think, a very critical way to look at the life that you live now. There are a million things that you have to face in life that you have to die to on a daily basis.
True.
Especially when you say that you love people. You die 1,000 times.
What is death other than change?
Well, yeah. But if the devil was in entropy, then you would have to take the creator as well and use him as entropy. So
exactly, because that's the yin yang, right? They're within each other.
Entropy sometimes exists not only to get rid of a person, but also to create new.
Exactly. If it wasn't for entropy,
that was really good.
Like life would choke on itself.
Yeah.
Right? Like entropy clears the state for creation to step up and do its thing constantly.
So I wouldn't necessarily call it the devil.
Well, that's why I was saying I think entropy is what the mythology of the devil is projecting.
Entropy is more or less the circle of life, in which it is necessary in order for the circle of life to maintain its constants.
And you can break it down to accept. The thing is, if it's not practical, then what we're talking about is just gish gallop. You know what I mean? Like, so it's got to be practical. So like how do I see entropy in my life? Well, like from an actual scientific level, no faith required. I'm not saying don't have faith, but it's just not necessary. A lie is a form of entropy, right? You are throwing in a disruptive error message into a data stream, which can echo into more disruptive tendencies. If I give you a lie around something critical and you operate from that lie in a critical nature, that can lead to a critical failure.
I think I have to divide entropy in its exact definition from bad.
Exactly.
Because entropy in and of itself isn't bad, but a lie is, though.
Well, again, that's the subject. That's why I think we can bridge the subjective and the objective. I think science and religion and spirituality don't have to be separate bedfellows. I think they're tied hand in hand.
We do have to tie down that objective truth exists, though.
So, this is where it gets tricky, man. I was just reading. So, have you guys ever heard of a scientist named Donald Hoffman? I think his name is Donald Hoffman. He's a scientist, and I'm trying to remember the exact field, the name of his field. It's not just sociology. It's like it's like a PhD in a field that actually Venn diagrams into like a lot of different fields. Long story short, he ran a series of simulations using game theory, right? And this guy's like, PhD level. He's got a lot of money paid into his research, so he's got like really good computers, really good models, really good algorithms. And he made this little, simulated environment, really rudimentary. He didn't need complex graphics, literally just like lines, and that's it. Like, how do these lines line up? They represent data. And he created 3 different like data programming sets. He said this set is going to be programmed for accuracy in this simulated environment, meaning that this set is going to have all the information relevant to the environment it needs, all the information, period. And within its access to all the information in the simulated environment, it has like a programmed algorithm that relates to like fitness, succeeding, right? Like in terms of like fitness of evolution. You got to understand, these are people that are like literally making math equations about this. So it's not metaphysical, or it's not metaphorical. It's not philosophical. They're saying these material qualities that represent life and chaos and order as they work together on a mathematically observable level are like repeatable and documentable. So the first data set in the simulation had access to all the information relevant to the environment and encoded with the parameters that were analogous to fitness and survival. Okay. Then the second data set was given only a partial amount of awareness of its environment. It wasn't given all the information to the environment, only given some. And then it was also given the priority to be fit and to survive the simulated quote unquote life of fitness, quote unquote, like evolutionary fitness. The third data set was given absolutely no parameters of accuracy whatsoever, which means it did not have to have a single accurate like representation of its environment at all, only the programmed outcome of fitness. And in every single simulation, the data sets which had no environmental awareness drove the other sets to extinction. So at the end of like continually, these simulations showed that the lack of actual awareness and accuracy was more pivotal to fitness and survival. In other words, if you use a lie to survive from a mathematical evolutionary standpoint, that's fine. You survived. Life persisted. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. But the guy who discovered this almost quit his like work after he realized this. He was like, this is terrifying. That means that we're less likely to survive if we are fully aware of what's going on around us, which means the incentive for accuracy is actually like, it's like there's disincentives biologically within us to actually find accuracy. What's actually more beneficial to survival is just making up whatever the hell you need to do. And if it makes you survive and pass on your genes and continue life, then that was it.
We call that
right?
childlike faith.
Huh?
We call that childlike faith.
Can you break that down for me?
The idea that you don't necessarily need to fully know and understand anything more than you just need to believe that that God is able.
Here's the thing though. In these simulations, it's pivotal to understand that these 3 data sets coexisted. The data sets which had no incentive to be accurate made the other 2 extinct. That was the really alarming factor that was taken from this work, right? So basically, at the end of the day, according to this math, this is just like scientific theory. If I make up that me and my tribe is for some reason like justified in just enslaving and raping and taking everything we want, and then we do that and we succeed because we've snuffed out everybody that can stop us, that would be an evolutionary advantage, whether it's right, wrong, or accurate.
For the time to where you could exist.
What?
For the time to which you could exist. Because if it leads to extinction, then it inherently isn't necessarily like a good thing. It's just
No.
good for you. So what's good for you isn't necessarily great for everybody else.
Exactly. So for instance, if let's just say, I'm going to make a bold claim. Let's just say that if love is the interconnection of all things, and the data set, which was programmed to perceive literally all things, could be said to perceive love, and the data set, which didn't need to perceive a goddamn thing other than whatever the hell it needed to perceive to get what it wanted to be fit, right? That shows the power of like ignorance, and that's terrifying.
Well, it pretty much showed the non-existence of love leads to extinction, because there's no love for the other people. There's lone survival.
Well, it was extinction for the other things. Now, here's the thing: is that the simulation they were running wasn't as sophisticated as our actual environment.
So when that entropy conquered over that love, when those people that existed with the loving people, when entropy ended up conquering overall, then they end up going extinct, correct?
No, only the two data sets which were programmed to have some or all awareness of the environment were driven to extinction.
So the only people who survived were the liars.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
It's terrifying. It's really terrifying, because say you take this simulation. Now, granted, hold on. You got to really, before any kind of scaremongering happens, I can't talk to the scientist, so I can't ask him this question. But what I would ask him is like, aren't you doing this experiment within a closed environment? Right? And so if that's true, then is the closest analogy then of a closed environment that we have our whole ass planet, right? And it's technically not a closed environment, but the thresholds between our atmosphere and everything out beyond that are so extreme that pretty much everything on one side of the line isn't viable on the other side. So it might as well be a closed environment, right? And so if we're living in a mostly closed environment, that means that these extrapolations that they're putting in these simulations could be used to be like, yo, this is a cautionary tale of how our ignorance can like run us in ways where our like consciousness is just not even engaged at all. We're just going off a base instinct, whatever the hell I need to do, get what I want, take what's mine, survive, pass on my seed, et cetera, et cetera. And that's it. I don't give a hell about anything else. These simulations show that it's like, damn, that actually has power. And it's not right. It's not right or wrong. It's scary.
It does have power, because that's what most people refer to as the alpha male.
Yeah. You know, an interesting thing about that was that the guy who came up with that term was a scientist who was he was doing that work based on wolves that were in captivity. A closed environment. Again, entropy loves a closed environment. But when he later recanted that whole work that he did, he said, yeah, it's wrong. I was wrong, because I'm studying wolves in the wild and they don't function like this. They function, the youngest follow the oldest. It has nothing to do with alphaness. It's just whoever's been around the longest is the one that everyone's like, you know what's up, we're going to follow you. And the thing about the older wolves in the packs is generally they walk in the back, right? They're not up front. They're up in the back, making sure they can see everybody. Everyone's safe.
I mean, that truism isn't necessarily spread all the way around like the animal kingdom, because you could take like chimps to be like alpha males. And
okay, if you're going to do that, you're going to be talking about the difference between chimpanzees and bonobo chimpanzees. The distinction being, yes, chimpanzees will chase each other down, tear each other's faces off, and do all kind of brutal things to themselves and other primates.
Well,
but bonobos don't.
what I was going to say about chimps, the brutal ones, is sometimes they have brutal leaders, who run things with the iron fist, and they die brutal deaths. And then sometimes they have loving leaders who die of natural causes.
And there's examples of that in nature that have been observed.
Yeah.
For instance, there's a troop of baboons still alive and being observed to this day in Kenya. And baboons are those ones, they'll fight leopards and shit. Like, they're gnarly strong. Like the males, the strong males in the baboon family are like really vicious. They'll fight big ass cats and stuff. And this one troop of baboons, their territory included a human resort that was kind of infringing on their territory. And the resort was throwing their garbage in a garbage pile out like a landfill right outside their hotel. And the baboons were like, yo, free buffet, man. So what ended up happening is all the violent, dominant males claimed the garbage dump for themselves and would not let other weaker males and females access it. They're like, it's all mine, right? Well, then one day the resort threw out a bunch of tuberculosis-laced chicken. And so cut to like not too long after that, all the violent males died. And all that was left were all the like non-violent males and the females. And they were all looking at that garbage dump like, all right, nobody eat that garbage. And then what happened is that the distance between the primates that they sat between each other began to shorten. They all started sitting closer to each other. They all started grooming each other more. Males were grooming females that normally wouldn't be allowed to touch a female, right? And the females were grooming the men that they normally wouldn't be allowed to touch. And then the males were grooming each other like, yo, you're my brother, man. Like, can we get the ticks off of you, you know? It became more peaceful. And what's even more fascinating is that in baboon, in the behavioral matrix of baboon culture, when you're a young male and you reach a certain age, what baboons do is they leave their troop, they go find another troop to join. And what they do is they generally find the male, like if they're a big old male, they're going to challenge the male, and that's going to work itself out. But when these new males started coming to this new troop where all the fucking violent, aggressive, dominant males died of their own machinations, is that as soon as these new males started coming in that were showing all this flex, the whole troop would be like, yeah, we don't do that here. You need to bounce. Or you can come chill with us and we'll groom you. And you can groom us and we'll just vibe. And their culture maintained like that. There was an actual cultural change because of the lack of violent dominant males. And I'm not asking anybody to take any physical lessons from this. Like, don't go around poisoning people. But I think an allegory that could be pulled from this is the entropy of our choices that relate to greed, domination, things like that. I mean, that come back and bite you in the ass, right? Because again, someone of that perspective or an organism that's not concerned with awareness, only fitness, might miss out on those details. I think are its own undoing.
There's a huge missing point out of that though. Like, yeah, they maybe they found peace without hierarchy or whatever. And you said they're in the wild, right? So did they all defend one another equal?
Well, they can still fight. I mean, they didn't stop defending one another. I mean, that when the aggressive males would come in and try to dominate, they would like be aggressive back, but not in a dominant way. It was more of enforcing a boundary kind of way, right? So yeah, I mean, baboons are still gnarly. Like they're still like very strong, powerful.
Yeah, I know for a fact that it is hard to get rid of hierarchy, like just in general, and for things to remain the same. Generally, if we destroyed all hierarchy in America right now, right? If we were to do that right now, what would end up happening was another hierarchy would take place. because everybody isn't necessarily leaders. And then there are those among us who need help more so than others.
Right.
So it's like you never get rid of hierarchy.
So you know me. You've known me for a minute. But the
Mhm.
people who don't know where I'm coming from, I'm an anarchist at the heart, right? And in my development as an anarchist and the observation of anarchists around me, so the observation of myself and others that speak of or practice or claim or whatever aspects of anarchism, I've noticed that there's like these phases that people go through. Like the first phase of anarchism is like generally reactionary rejection. Fuck all the rules, fuck all the hierarchies, fuck it all, fuck, you know, like, and that's understandable. It's like someone's breaking an elastic tension that they've been holding on themselves that gets let loose, and that energy goes in every direction. And it makes sense that someone would do that from a core cathartic level. At the end of the day, you still we're all still living on this planet together. So you can say fuck all that, but you can also fuck around and find out, right? And so when it comes to like the nature of hierarchies, as I've grown as an anarchist, I've really honed in on the nuance, that the difference of what's the word? The distinction matters between this is loaded language, a just hierarchy or an unjust hierarchy, which before you say anything, yes, is going to be subjective. But that's why we talk to each other. That's why we negotiate with each other. That's why we learn from each other. That's why we show grace and mercy and kindness toward each other and ourselves, right? That's why we have strong boundaries, strengthen ourselves, strong respect for each other, right? And so, for instance, I'm an anarchist, right? But if my son needed a heart surgery tomorrow, I want a verifiably good heart surgeon. I want to be able to see the math. I want to know why this is the best heart surgeon for my son's heart surgery. I want that hierarchy in place. I want that to be provable, right? So the difference is unjust or just. And from an anarchist perspective, anarchy isn't no rules. It's no rulers. Right? And that doesn't mean no leaders, right? It doesn't mean no leaders. In fact, I would say that leadership is an integral part of the human experience, right?
I would say that leadership was a part of a hierarchy.
Right. So here's the thing. If we're talking about an actual distinction, so here's why it matters, right? If I say hierarchy is natural, therefore, you need to accept a boot on my throat. That's what we're trying to avoid, right? My faith in this hierarchical perspective justifies my oppression, my domination, my infringement of your rights, or what could be your rights if we cooperate, right? So the goal, like, this is going to sound real technical, but like, from an anarchist perspective, the allowance of hierarchy would exist in a framework of what it's called, and I'm invested in this perspective, anarcho-syndicalism, right? Anarcho-syndicalism would be the division of labor and the development of skill-based hierarchies within that, and the cooperation for organizing around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say, like, let me ask you a question real quick. Let's just say tomorrow, let's just say some weird thing happened and money vanished, but nobody panicked, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't need to earn money anymore, and therefore technically were not coerced to labor, would you still choose to do any labor whatsoever?
Probably.
Right? And so what kind of labor would you choose to do if you were free to do so?
Things that overall made my life better.
So let's break that down into skill sets. We don't have to throw all these shit out to rearrange how we organize. Like break it down. Like you're a tremendous listener, not just a listener, a reflector and a thinker and a considerer. That's therapy. That's psychology. That's coaching. That's leadership, right? That's all kind of support like role skill sets right there. So if those skill sets can be measured and others can group around that measurement, you can start to make hierarchies that aren't based on dominance, but rather like, yo, you are really good. We're going to listen to you.
Well, that's good hierarchy to me. Like, well, all right, so I can't avoid the fact that we live in America to where like certain dominance hierarchies don't exist. But true power to me isn't necessarily the word power. It's competence. It's how competent you are in doing the things that you were skilled at.
I agree with that, and I think it can go even deeper, to a degree deeper that doesn't negate what you're saying. These are not my words; these are Huey P. Newton's words. And he defined power as the ability to instantiate one's will in material reality, as like the starting point. So when you define power as that versus power over another, that shifts the perspective, does it not? I mean, I could be missing something here, but when you build off of that definition of power, then it has nothing to do with leadership. It just literally has to do with one's ability.
Well, it's kind of like this. I'll use my wife as an example, right? So my wife, in quote unquote words, submits to me. And
I'm sorry, you cut out. You said
she quote unquote submits to me.
Okay.
So I am there to protect and I am there to provide for her. So if my wife tells me at 1 a.m. that she's getting ready to go out on a car drive, to go on a run, and I'm like, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. Now, that's me using the power that I have by word, not grabbing her by her neck or anything of that nature, but me using my words in order to tell her what you're doing is unsafe. Don't do that. I can't protect you there. You're by yourself, running along on a track.
And she consents to that?
Yeah.
And you consent to that as well?
Yeah.
Then what's the problem?
There isn't.
Then what we have there is a consensual hierarchy. And in that instance, that would be just, I think. Right?
Yeah. And I'm not talking about a boot on neck hierarchy though. Like
no, that's the distinction.
Yeah. It's different when two people cooperate, or one then more, 3 or more or 4 or more people cooperate, and in safety and love and things of that nature. Because I mean, like, we have children as well. I kind of not literally, but when it comes down to my children, it's more of a boot on the neck type thing, because it's kind of like, you're in my crib, and while you're in my crib is my rules. So you going over to this unbeneficial friend's house is not about to happen right now. And this is a direct no. And then there's no room for negotiation when it comes down to that. And right, then that is me protecting my tribe, though.
100%. Like here's a perfect example. Your kid's running into the street. You don't got time to do anything but get there just in time to yank him out the way as fast as you can. Right? That's technically a pretty violent thing to do to a child. Run to him and grab him and yank him in a direction. You're not trying to hurt him. I'm not saying yank him so you hurt him, but like, you're not going to be worried too much about like, oh, I got to make sure I'm, being super gentle right now, because this kid's going to get flattened in a second, right? That's not oppression. That's not abuse. And you could say, oh, well, like, as someone who's like, someone who's really trying to be like bad faith about what liberty is and rights are, and And hierarchies might say, well, yeah, technically you're like oppressing that child because they're whatever, right? Like that's bullshit. That's not practical, right? You're dealing with a being who doesn't have the level of awareness you have, right? And your acts of creating boundaries in their life are specifically to create space for them to grow, right? And so we can get into like the consent of being born and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's not unreasonable to say that adults have a level of power that children do not have, no matter how much we'd like for them to have it. But we can give them as much power as we can while keeping the boundaries in place, right? Like you tell your kid, you can't go hang out with this kid because they're doing some shit that you know is not a good influence on them. That doesn't mean you're like, and you don't get to do anything else, right? You're like, nah, here's all these other options. We're going to go do this as a family. Here's these other friends that want me to hang out. You do this. You know what I mean? You give them choice to do stuff while also having the boundaries so they're not being fenced in. And I don't think there's anything oppressive about that. I think when you start saying things like, this is who you're supposed to be as an individual, this is how you're supposed to think and feel and appear to be considered valid, that can start turning into abuse, right? But if you're like, yo, I'm not letting you go play next to that snake pit. I'm sorry. I don't care how fun it looks. You're not doing that. Like, it's just not going to happen. That's not abuse, right?
Well, hey, jump into the Discord because I think we're about to end this now, and then
All right.
we can finish the conversation after this.
Thank you so much for having me on here. Let me run my mouth.
Not a problem. Do you have any social media or anything that you want to share that people can follow?
I do not. Okay. But that's okay. It's not necessary.
Hey, bro. I appreciate your input, man. You gave us a lot to think about. You definitely gave us a great conversation. If you are free Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're actually having a very interesting conversation with a bigger panel that I think your input would be great for. If you are free, you're more than welcome to hop back in.
I might be free. I'll be at work, and but my evening work is very quiet, so I might be amenable. But I'm gonna do my best to tune in. I've got my subscription on for this channel and whatnot.
Cool.
So it'll send me alerts. And me and Homie are talking all the time too.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having me on here. I really appreciate talking about love with you.
Man, we could talk about love all day, any day, bro.
Damn straight.
Well, as you know, Legit, you know I love you, bro, and
love you too. Really grateful I met
you. I appreciate you just joining. I appreciate your bravery and being able to talk your thoughts. You know, just before you leave, you know, a lot of the times or whatever, I think Driscoll caught this too. A lot of the times, I feel as though you're proving my point more so than you're disproving it, even with your disagreements. I think your disagreements prove my points.
Well, I'm not trying to argue, that's for sure.
Yeah. But much love, bro. Love you.
Absolutely. You family over here. We appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.
I enjoy the rest of your night. Great conversation, man. Sorry for those who did tune in for the BLEXIT Talks Black Fathers Matter reaction show. We did have a few more clips we wanted to go over, but we're here. We're going to be back with a part 2 where we will continue that. I always want to leave room for the Holy Spirit to do what he does. And sometimes the conversation goes elsewhere, and we open for that in the sanctuary at all times. So thank you all for tuning in. I'm here again with Smitty helping me co-host tonight. He will be back Friday, hopefully. I don't know what his schedule is looking like. We'll discuss that a little later, but he will definitely be back in the future, one way or another. Smitty, if you got any final thoughts, last words, I want to let them know where to find you. The floor is yours.
You can find me on IG at Jess_. No. Let me rephrase this because I got the YouTube channel getting ready to pop. So follow me on IG at show_about_nothing. You will find me on there sharing clips from my YouTube page. Soon as I post this clip that I plan on posting, I am going to post it in the comments. So check the comments daily. Hopefully someday soon in the Church of Heathens, we might be able to share one of my clips in here as a point of reference to talk about something. But as usual, bro, I appreciate you for having me on. I know we got a little long-winded and off track tonight, but as usual, we did our thing.
Absolutely. And we will be back to continue this one. So no love lost at all. Yeah, I ain't got nothing else to say. Y'all, I am Bristol. Once again, we'll be back this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, if I'm not mistaken, with a special. He will be discussing church hurt, prophecy, and spiritual gifts. You do not want to miss it. I am telling you, it will be an amazing show, guarantee. He got a hell of a perspective, and much like us, he is not with the constraints of religion. I really wish we could have got to the rest of this, but once again, we will be back very shortly to discuss this. So we appreciate you. Please tune in Friday. Do not forget. And without further ado, all my fellow heathens, we out of here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you can only look beyond the surface and see the purpose.
Look beyond the surface.
I never told the world that I was perfect, but God is working.
Come on.
They don't understand the life I live. They don't understand the life I live.
I said I'm not perfect.
They don't understand the life I live. They don't understand the life I live.
Understand that God's work.
They don't understand the life I live. They don't understand the life I live.
Still working.
They don't understand the life I live. They don't understand the life I live. They say old habits die hard, mine looking immortal. This Mortal Kombat, Reaper standing center the portal. As I'm fighting for my life, demons ain't being cordial. Every leap of faith I make, it's like I trip on a hurdle. I feel the devil so close that he inhaling my air, and the essence of his presence is oppression and fear. Once you push that fear aside, it should make you aware. The distraction is to stop you, cause your miracle's near. No need to push my life back if my doom wasn't reached. The blood of Jesus, what he chooses to feast. I feed some truth to that leech. Taste this victory and fill up your cup. Watch the inheritance just fill me back up. I never quit my assignment. Nah, bloodsucker, ain't quitting my assignment. No, no.